All right, welcome in to chapter 16. Congratulations. You have made it. The final chapter of our Principles of Management Odyssey. Today we take a look at control systems, quality management, and heck, even a little bit of accounting today. So we kind of run the gamut here a little bit in chapter 16. It's a chapter, for lack of a better term, it's a little bit all over the place, but control systems and quality management kind of end up being the two themes throughout this chapter. So let's go ahead, dive right into it. We'll take a look here at our 6 learning objectives for the chapter. We're going to describe control as the management function. We're going to describe the steps in the control process and the types of control. We're going to discuss ways that managers can control an organization. We're also going to explain TQM, total quality management. We're going to discuss that process. We're going to talk about contemporary control issues, and then we're going to discuss the process for managing career readiness and the 6 tips for managing your career. So, like I said, this chapter takes a lot of different looks at a lot of different things. And, one thing, especially with principles of management, and this chapter is a microcosm of it. This book, this chapter, this course takes a look at a lot of different subject matters. It's what I like to call going an inch deep and a mile wide, where we take a lot of stuff, but we don't really get all that super in depth with it. You'll go out there, in your further, when you further your college careers, you'll go out there and you'll see that some of these chapters that we took a look at, very very baseline knowledge. You'll have full courses on total quality management and control processes, right? You're not going to take one simple look at this, and then that's it, right? You're going to get more in depth with these subject matters as you continue along in your career. But this course really is sort of meant to lay the foundation for what lies ahead in your collegiate careers. So keep that in mind as you're going here. Mentors can help you control your career. So really quick on the manage you part, mentorship is such an important part of ultimately finding success within an organization and within your career. The ability to have somebody that you can go to have as a sounding board, can go to for advice, is so valuable in the business world and really just life in general. But when you seek out that mentor, get that mentor, it's important that there's stuff that you have to do too. You have to be the one to set goals, come prepared every single day, stay open-minded, respect your mentor's time in terms of when to approach them, when to maybe try and figure it out yourself, and then ultimately to have the self-awareness of knowing, like, hey, this isn't exactly working, whether it's maybe the relationship with the mentor or what you're trying to do to strive every single day to accomplish in your working day life. You have to understand when is it not working, and how do I need to adjust, or do I need to go do something else completely different, right? So you have to kind of consider those facts as well when working with a mentor and sort of understanding yourself and your ultimate career path goals. So things to keep in mind when you get out there into your professional career. 16.1, we take a look at our controlling for effective performance. So right here we have the 4 functions of management. We have planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And we take a look a little bit further at controlling today. Now you can see here, and this is on page 696 in your book, we talk about the planning. So that's where you're setting goals and deciding how to achieve them. You're organizing, you're arranging your tasks, your people, your other resources to accomplish that work. Leading, you're motivating people to work hard, achieve those organizational goals. And then finally, we get to controlling, which is the part that we're focusing on today. This is where you monitor that performance, compare it with goals, and then take corrective action as needed. And with controlling, this is, I want to say, it can be difficult and it can be easy, where it's, if the situation is obviously not working, then it's pretty easy to, see, oh yeah, this was a total disaster, right? The plan was off. We didn't, maybe staff correctly. Maybe our people just weren't motivated. So, when it's really, really bad it's pretty good, or it's pretty easy to see. And when it's really, really good, it's also pretty easy to see where it's like, yeah, man, we crushed it. This is exactly what we want. The plan was great. We organized it well. Everybody was motivated. It's where that gray area comes of, okay, we're doing well. We're not 100% perfect. Where are some ways that we can improve upon our situation? And that's where this controlling piece, and this is where great managers who have that ability to monitor performance and compare it, and then take a look at the data and understand what it means, and then take the corrective action. That's where top level managers really sort of separate themselves in the controlling part of when it's good, not great, what can we do to improve, and then taking the corrective action. If you get into a situation, think about your class, think about your your classes in general, right? If you're looking, you plan out how you're going to achieve in this course, all right? And then you organize yourself in terms of, all right, we organize, when am I going to read the book? When am I going to listen to the video lecture? When am I going to do the project? When am I going to do the current events, right? You organize your life in terms of how you plan around this course. And then the leading part, you are responsible for motivating yourself to work hard, achieve your goals, right? Maybe you have a friend, a parent, a brother, or sister that helps you in that leading portion of like, hey, you need to make sure you get that done, right? But then it's the controlling part where you get in, you take, you maybe you work on something, you plan, you organize, you get that proper motivation, and then all of a sudden you get into the test and shoot, I got a C or whatever, and that doesn't reach your standard of achieving your highest goal, which is more than likely an A. So then this controlling part comes in where you sort of have to figure out, all right, where exactly did I go wrong in this process? Was my plan not well? Did I need to, did I need to devote more time to reading the chapter? Or did I, maybe not pay as close attention in creating our project as I should have? Was I busy? Was I distracted while taking notes on the chapter? Right. That controlling process then becomes a little bit more difficult because you have to kind of pinpoint, like, okay, what exactly went wrong here? And that can be sort of difficult because maybe you feel that the reason why things went wrong was you didn't read the chapter enough. Okay. Well, that's great. You read the chapter, you reread the chapter for the next chapter, come to find, oh, wait, that wasn't the problem. I scored a C again, right? And now it's like, okay, now I've had back-to-back tests, what the heck's the problem, right? Well, maybe it ends up turning out that every time you study, you're listening to TV or you're listening to music, and that music or that television is distracting you, right? But it can sometimes be difficult to pinpoint what exactly that corrective action is. So sometimes it relies on guess and check, right? So it's kind of the ability, and of course, in your case, the controlling action, the corrective action, you want to get that done as quickly as possible, right? Because you want to continue to perform better on the exam. So you want to find the root of the problem as quick as possible so you can then go ahead and make that corrective action, right? But if you're spending time guessing and checking on what the actual problem is, your grade can suffer because of that. So again, separating good managers from great managers is that ability to correctly diagnose what the issue is. And sometimes problems, will be one of those things where, yeah, you just have to guess and check your way towards a corrective action. But when we talk controlling, that's just kind of a simple baseline example of how we can do it. All right. Then we take a look at the 6 reasons control is needed. So with this one, we need to adapt and change to uncertainty. So that's the first one. So all organizations must deal with environmental changes and uncertainties. Control systems can help manage, anticipate, monitor, and react to these changes. So of course, you guys saw this with COVID. You guys saw this with how teaching basically got flipped upside down on its head in March of 2020. And while we were probably lucky here that we were able to, after starting in the 2021 school year, while we were pretty lucky to come back in person, and have in-person, teaching, where our maybe adjustment wasn't as deep as maybe some of these other schools and states that, were online for an entire year. There was still that adapting to that change in uncertainty. And at the college level, it was, it was incredibly difficult because, you had, people that were trying to obtain degrees, and all of these college professors then had to figure out, okay, well, how can I get these kids these students to, take their exams, take things that they need to take, ensure that there's nothing nefarious going on in terms of cheating. How do we make that work, right? So those adapting to change and uncertainty, that's something that you're going to see all over the place. Higher education just being one example. Then we take a look at discovering irregularities and errors, right? So with this one, small problems can mushroom into big ones, right? So we talked, maybe we talk about um, going back to our example of studying in this course. Maybe a small problem that you have is while you're reading the chapter, you have your phone out, and every couple of minutes you answer a text or send a Snapchat or whatever. That seems really small and really innocent, but it can balloon into a big problem if it pulls your focus from your studies, what you're planning on doing, right? So you got to discover those irregularities, those errors, when kind of conducting an assessment of your actions when trying to set out and achieve goals. Then we also take a look to reduce costs, increase productivity, or add value. So this is a little bit more on the business side. So taking a look at all of your processes. When are we running machines? How long are we running machines? Are we having to stop certain machines that then take a start time to reboot and restart, and then that decreases our productivity. So looking at the control features of your organization as a whole can help you reduce labor costs, eliminate waste, increase output, increase product delivery cycles. So the more efficient you can be with your machinery and figuring out how to really make everything work as efficiently as possible, that's a big portion of the control feature, because ultimately we want to reduce costs, we want to reduce costs, and we want to be as productive as possible, and ultimately that's going to add value to our organization, to our product that we are creating. So that's another six reasons we need it. One of the six reasons we need it: to detect opportunities and increase innovation. So controls help alert managers to innovative opportunities that may have otherwise gone unnoticed. Right now, you are seeing this a lot with AI, Chat GPT, excuse me. Um, really, you're kind of seeing that right now play out with. There's a lot of opportunity there for businesses to automate a lot of work, and it's really scary when you think about it in terms of the jobs that this could cost. But it's also for businesses, there's an opportunity. This can also help us innovate in terms of what can get done, and how it what can get done in the business world, and so much more: education, medical. I saw the other day, and this is crazy. One of the AI bots was better than doctors at responding to patient questions and diagnosing like root causes. Like that was just that was crazy to me, that we've kind of arrived at that point. So I mean, there's opportunity in there. It's scary. There's some scariness to it as well, but there is some opportunity within there as well. Number five, to provide performance feedback. So research demonstrates that feedback also has a control function for individuals and teams. The quality of this feedback affects employee attitudes and performance. So, the feedback piece is obviously important in terms of, okay, what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on making forward? And then to decentralize decision making and facilitate teamwork. So control allows top management to decentralize decision making at lower levels within the organization and encourage employees to work together in teams. So those are six reasons why control is needed within an organization. And then you can kind of see here, as a graphic here, and you can see this one on page 699, the same things we just talked about there in slide 5, laid out in graphic form. All right, now we move into 16.2. So the control process and types of control. So we're talking about the steps in the control process, and then we're also going to talk about types of control. So steps in the control process. So we start out with step 1. We talk about establishing the standards. So what is the outcome we want? So control standard or performance standard, or simply standard, is desired performance level for a given goal. So standards could be narrow or broad. They can be set for almost anything, although they are best measured when they are made quantifiable. So you guys see standards within within the school, right, where it's i.e. it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4. Obviously 4 is the goal. 4 demonstrates complete understanding of a particular subject. So you kind of understand what the standard is. Educators, we have our own set of standards that we have to abide by when it comes to teaching. We while it's maybe not a quantitative grade, where like I don't get graded a 4 for having a great lesson, but we have a set of standards that we're certainly striving for when we come into an organization. There are certain sets of industry standards with whatever industry you may go into in terms of, hey, this is acceptable or this is not acceptable within your business, right? So establishing those standards, and ultimately the outcome, if you're in industry, there are safety standards, there are benchmark standards for efficiency, there are financial standards for, how your business is being run. Ultimately, with the outcomes that we want to, at the very least, be in line with the industry standard. And a lot of times we want to beat the industry standard because, we want to be seen as an upper echelon business, right? So we have to establish the standards. That is the first part. Then we measure performance. So step 2, measure performance. So this is what is the actual outcome we got. So in the second step, the control process is to measure, by number of products sold, units produced, time to completion, profit margin, cost per item sold, right? So we actually measure, okay, this is how we did, right? Or if we're in school, okay, the goal was a 4, we actually scored a 3. Okay, so we measure our performance. So that performance data in the business world is usually obtained by 5 sources. So employee behavior and deliverables, peer input or observation, customer feedback, managerial evaluation, and output from a production process. So when you're measuring that performance in the business world, you want to draw from a lot of different sources. You don't want to just rely on one individual or one source to make a determination on how well you performed. Where employee behavior might be solid in terms of attitude, things like that, but maybe the feedback is not so good, where it's like, oh yeah, like no, they might be happy, but man, they're not really doing a ton over there. So you kind of have to, again, use all of these sources to sort of determine, all right, how did the performance actually work out. Number 3, then we take a look at comparing performance to standards. So how do the desired and actual outcomes differ? So this third step, it's the process where we compare the measured performance against the standards established. Most managers are delighted with performance that exceeds standards, then which becomes an occasional handing out bonuses, promotions, perhaps offices with a view, right? So they try to reward us, when standards are, beat on a consistent basis. Control charts are a visual statistical tool used for quality control process. And then management by exception, a control principle that states managers should be informed of a situation only if the data shows a significant deviation from standards. Where this at this point, we talk about management by exception. This is where we take a look at and see like, oh, we were significantly worse than what the industry standard is. You take a look at like standard deviation charts where it's like, okay, if we're one standard deviation worse than whatever the performance is, okay, we need to address that. Or maybe if we were just a little bit off, it's like, we'll keep an eye on it, but maybe not a huge corrective action needed. So you kind of have to use best judgment when exercising management by exception, because some managers are just simply on top of it all of the time, and also need to consider that when working as well. Then step 4, we take a look at taking corrective action as needed. So this step concerns feedback, modifying if necessary the control process to the results or the effects, right? So that's that last part there where we take a look at everything and it's like, okay, maybe we either hit the target, we did well, or we didn't do so well. Okay, now what's our next step? What corrective action needs to take place? You can see here, this is the steps of the control process. In your book, this is on page 699. And then on our next slide here, slide 10, you can see the simple control chart a little bit better with a little bit better visual with this. This is page 701, taking a look at the acceptable range of variation. So you can see those red dots where you have 35 pages per night, That's your lower limit. Your 55 pages per night, that's your desired performance. And then your upper limit is 75 pages per night. And you can kind of see with the time chart here, you can kind of see on what days are, we within that, or we within that standard. So, taking a look at this is kind of like that management by control feature, right? Where you kind of you've set your established limit, 55 pages a night's a desired performance. But, if you're, say 40, the management by exception will say, okay. Don't really need to address it. We'd like to get better. But then all of a sudden, if we're dipping below 35, or going above 75, it's like, okay, maybe we need to address this, and what are the potential issues with this. So that's just a sample control chart that you can see there on page 701. Types of control. So we take a look at the types of control. So we had feed forward control, concurrent control, and then feedback control. So when we talk about feed forward control, so feed forward control focuses on preventing future problems. So a recent study confirmed the benefit of effective feed forward control, showing it improved organizational performance and maximized profits. So, an example of feed forward control might be the banning of cell phones, right? As an example, right? Where, you could see a future problem with an organization, people wasting time on their cell phones. So you ban cell phones in the office, right? That would be trying to focus on preventing a future problem. Where, especially if you're a new organization, right? Maybe it's a little bit reactive if you're an organization who's just now doing it. But that feed forward control of putting practices in place to just try and not prevent, or just try and prevent issues from maybe arising within the future. Then we have concurrent control. So concurrent control entails collecting performance information in real time. This enables managers to measure performance and determine if employee behavior and organizational processes conform to regulations and standards. So this is like the real time grading, the real time, managers are in the office, they're doing interviews, they're looking at daily reports, and think, okay, looking at it real time, are we actually meeting the standard? Are we not meeting the standard? What's going on? That's trying to be as on top of it in real time as possible. Now, sometimes the issue with this one, it can feel a little bit micromanagey, where the managers are consistently on top of you to produce reports or show what you're doing. So that can get a little bit difficult as an employee, just because you feel like you're consistently being watched. And again, as employees, I think you guys can probably level with this, where you don't want to be watched all the time. You need time to figure things out, work through it. So that's concurrent control. And then we have feedback control. So feedback control amounts to collecting performance information after a task or project is done. So the problem with this feedback is it's often occurs too late, right? So one of the annoying things a little bit about you guys, especially not you guys, that's annoying, but one of the annoying things for you guys maybe is when it comes to grading things, feedback control is very much the name of the game when it comes to grading things, right? Where you guys get you do a project, do a quiz, do a test, you planned for it, you did all this, that, and the other, and then the feedback control, that's where I come in, and I grade your quizzes. Well, once that score is taken, there's not exactly anything you can do about it, because you just received the feedback. You can't go back in and change the grade, so that becomes problematic for you guys. So you guys can probably level, or definitely have seen the feedback control. So then we take a look at what should managers control. So this is 16.3. We take a look at what should managers control. So balanced scorecard, a comprehensive approach to managerial control. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at the financial perspective. What does success look like to our shareholders? Customer perspective. How do we appear to our customers? Internal business perspective. What must we do extremely well? We'll also take a look at innovation and learning perspective. Are we equipped for continued value and improvement? And then we're going to take a look at strategy mapping, visual representations of the path to organizational effectiveness. So as you can see, what should managers control? It almost looks like what shouldn't they control, right? There's a lot of stuff here when it comes to what managers are in charge of that needs to be focused on, needs to be considered within an organization, that we're going to kind of dive a little bit more in depth to that. So this figure 16.5, this is on page 706 in your book. This takes a look at the balanced scorecard. So the four perspectives of a comprehensive approach to managerial control. So we see there at the top, it's our financial perspective. So what does success look like to our shareholders? Okay, so then we have on one side, we have our goals, and then we have our measures of, what do we want to get accomplished? How do we measure it? Then we have number two, customer perspective. So how do we appear to our customers? Again, what's our goal? How do we measure that? And then we have our innovation and learning perspective. Are we equipped for continued value and improvement? Again, goals, how do we measure? And then our internal business perspective. What must we do extremely well with our goals and measures once again? So this can sort of help managers, organize within their minds, within their organizations of, okay, what are our perspectives? What are our goals? How are we going to end up measure these? Because again, there's a lot of stuff that goes on within an organization, and that can become rather difficult to keep balanced. So the financial perspective, what does success look like to our shareholders? So budgets obviously are a big part. So budgets is a formal financial projection. It states an organization's planned activities for a given period of time in quantitative terms, such as dollars, hours, or number of products. Budgets are prepared not only for organization as a whole, but also for divisions and departments within it. Incremental budgeting allocates increased or decreased funds to a department by using the last budget period as a reference point. Only incremental changes in the budget request are reviewed. And then fixed budget allocates resources on the basis of a single estimate of cost. So here's the thing about budgets. Budgets, not only, when we think budget, a lot of times we think, dollars and cents. But, if we have a machine, right, we can budget the hours that a machine is producing this product, right, at this size, right? You think about, just as an example for producing shirts, right? You might have, let's just say hypothetically, we have a machine that produces shirts, right? Well, we have to budget the amount of hours that it's going to produce small shirts, medium shirts, large shirts, extra large, double XL, right? So on and so forth. So we have to budget and allocate time to how often we're going to produce those shirts. Same thing with the number of products, right? Are we going to produce, 1,000 medium shirts and maybe only 50 triple XL shirts, right? We have to budget, what we're going to produce as well. So it's not just a dollar and cents argument. It is also hours on the machine. What are we producing? So on and so forth. Okay. Each department oftentimes will have a budget. They have the general budget, what you expect, but then within that, each department, each division will have a budget. And we have incremental budgeting. Okay. So with incremental budgeting, your budgets are based off what you spent last. So this is kind of, it seems almost backwards. It kind of hurts me as a financial literacy teacher sometimes, where it's like, we get to the end of the month or the end of the school year, and we're maybe under budget, and I get approached and say, hey, we got to spend some money, otherwise the incremental budget's going to it's going to shrink for you guys. And it's like, wait, what? Like, we did a great job managing costs. Now you got to tell me I got to go out there and spend all this money. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it next year. That can be kind of difficult for me to take as a business teacher, where it's like, no, I'd just like to roll that money over into next year. So if I need to go buy something big, I can do that, right? So again, can be sort of an annoying process for me as just business teacher, finance person. Then we have financial statements. So financial statements, you can see here on page 709. This is a profit and loss statement, also known as an income statement, where we have these summaries of the financials. So we have a balance sheet, so my accounting people understand, summarizes an organization's overall financial worth. That is its assets and liabilities at a specific point in time. If you guys remember, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. It is back for this chapter in section 13.3. Then we have our income statements. Our income statement summarizes an organization's financial results, revenues, expenses over a specific period of time, such as a quarter or year. And then we have a statement of cash flows. So that reports the cash generated and used over a specific time period. And then we have these things called financial ratios, which, we haven't touched on a ton in any of the high school business courses, but these financial ratios are indicators to determine a company's financial information in comparison. So there's a really good chart here on page 710 in your book. If you take a look at it, there are three ratios that are measured. It's the current ratio, the asset ratio, or the asset turnover ratio, and then the return on investment ratio. And these ratios, so the first one, current ratio, measures the company's ability to pay short-term obligations that are due within a year. Okay, so we call that the current ratio. So how quickly can I pay off my short-term liabilities? Then we have our asset turnover ratio. So this is the efficiency in which a company uses assets to generate revenue. That's an important number that we want to know. How efficient are we with using our assets? And then we have our return on investment. So the amount of return on a particular investment relative to its cost. So if we spend $10 million investing in a product or project, and we make $11 million, right? We take a look at that ratio and say, okay, could we maybe have spent that $10 million elsewhere to maybe have made 15 or $20 million, right? So we take a look at that ratio to determine maybe our return on investment wasn't as good as it could have been. Then we take a look at our customer's perspective. How do we appear to our customers? So customer satisfaction, customer retention. So customer satisfaction, that's the measure of how products or services provided by a firm meet customer expectations. As you might expect, losing a dissatisfied customer means losing revenue. But did you know that replacing that customer is even a greater challenge? So studies show that it is 6 to 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than keep a current one. So, understanding your customers is such a vital part of your organization and keeping people within your organization. Just because customers who are not completely satisfied have a tendency to jump ship, or at the very least shop around with your competitors. So you want to try and keep your customers as happy as possible. So you need to keep tabs, keep information on your customers to work as best you can to keep them satisfied. And then customer retention. So how can we do it? The actions the companies take to reduce customer defections. So set customer expectations, go the extra mile, make it personal. So the more time that you can spend making it personal, making it feel like you genuinely care about them, and you should genuinely care about them as an organization. You showing that to your businesses gives you a much better chance at keeping that customer happy, and then ultimately not having to pay to acquire a new customer. Internal business perspective. So what must we do extremely well? So there are 4 parts of this. We have productivity, efficiency, quality, and safety. So when we talk about productivity, we're talking about productivity being applied at any level. So whether you're an individual for the work, whether for you as an individual for the work unit you're managing, or for your organization you work for. So productivity is defined by a formula of outputs divided by inputs for a specific period of time. Benchmarking, so that's a process by which a company compares itself to performance with others. And then best practices refer to a set of guidelines or ethics that have been shown to produce optimal results. So when we take a look, with productivity, the outputs divided by inputs is obviously interesting to see. You think about the hours that get input, to a grocery store on a daily basis. Well, in terms of man hours, in terms of products brought in, those are our inputs. Then ultimately, what are we getting as an output within our organization? In terms of sales, product moved, in terms of how does the store look, right? So we take a look at and see how our productivity is. One thing that I remember in the Hy-Vee days was a big thing about productivity was understanding how efficient we needed to be when getting a truck out onto the sales floor, right? Because the stuff that we were ordering a lot of times we needed on the sales floor. We needed it to try and sell. So with that productivity, we needed to be, efficient in terms of, all right, breaking down the truck, let's get this stuff onto the floor. So let's get it on the shelf then so we can sell it, right? So that was kind of one of those things where they measured, okay, we need this many workers to break it down at this period of time so we can get this stuff on the shelf. That's how we'll determine our productivity. And then that kind of bled into efficiency. So using resources, people, money, raw materials wisely and cost effectively, right? So you could schedule all of your part-time employees on a truck day, but it may not necessarily be the most efficient process. It's going to be costly. People are going to be getting in the way of each other. It's, not necessarily a quantity approach was not necessarily the best way to get work done in this situation, right? So we had to figure out, okay, what's the ideal number of employees that we needed to be working to solve the problem. Then we had quality. So high quality products and services are vital to the organization's success. This is true especially in crowded markets such as technology. So again, with this one, we talk about quality. Well, going back to the Hy-Vee, we wanted to be quality in that we were, not breaking the products as we were getting them onto the sales floor. We were also wanted to make sure that we were taking care of our customers, in terms of customers that needed, assistance, needed help finding things, right? Needed, a price check on, whatever it might be, right? So we wanted to not only give an efficient process of getting our truck out, but we also wanted to deliver quality service in terms of, making sure our, customers had a good experience within the store. And then we take a look at safety. So safety, last one there, an organization has responsibility of the safety of the communities in which they serve. Okay, so again, you think about some of the potential safety issues. Think about, the meat department, or, like a Hy-Vee kitchen, where it's like, okay, we want to make sure, our food is properly cooked so it doesn't get anybody sick. You think about, bakeries and, the cakes that they make. You want to think about those things as well, ensuring that stuff's done, at proper temperature. You want to think about the stuff in the back room at Hy-Vee, making sure it's, stored properly. The produce is, stored in coolers. The frozen items are, kept in a freezer where they're not going to unthaw and then refreeze, right? The milk is kept in a milk cooler, right? You want to, ensure that the safety for your organization is there, because, obviously this is, this can be, rather difficult. So, what must we do extremely well? So you got to measure those. Then innovation and learning perspective. So are we equipped for continued value and improvement? So employee attitudes. Okay, so employee attitudes are incredibly important to influence workers' behavior. Successful managers aren't satisfied with just happy employees. They strive to increase employee engagement, job satisfaction, and commitment. So yeah, you want to understand the temperature of the room with your employees, and what are their attitudes going in, because obviously you're going to need these people to achieve your goals. So you want to understand and have, be aware of what they're feeling at the present time. Then we have employee turnover. So every organization experiences some turnover. So recent studies demonstrate that job satisfaction and organizational commitment are the strongest predictors of turnover. Functional turnover. So this turnover occurs when underperformers leave a firm. Functional turnover is common in large accounting, consulting, and law firms employing an up or out philosophy. And then we have dysfunctional turnover. So this is the opposite of functional turnover and occurs when a company's best performers leave. And you do not want the dysfunctional turnover. It goes to say the least. You do not want your best people leaving you. Then we have resource capability. So managers need to ensure employees have the resources they need to be successful. This indicates investing in employee learning and development and in technology that supports achievement in the organizational goals. So, businesses, a lot of these businesses, they have limited funds, they have limited resources. So you need to be able to properly invest in your employees without breaking the bank, and making sure that they can improve or get the most out of whatever it is that they are striving for or trying to achieve. And then we have organizational culture. So organizational culture, people-focused organizations are guided by theory Y, the view that people are essentially good, trustworthy, and productive, and that they flourish when they are empowered to act independently in an atmosphere that respects diversity in behavior and values their well-being. So innovation and learning perspectives, are we continued to value and improve? Huge thing to look at, with just how things are trending in organizations at the present. All right, strategy and visual mapping. So you take a look at here. So this talks about some of those different goals, the 4 different goals we took a look at. And you can kind of see within this example here, it's on page 716 in your book, in terms of how all of these goals sort of fit and mold together. So I encourage you to take a look at this. And this is a sample strategy map from Keurig, Dr. Pepper. You probably just learned something today. The Keurig cups and Dr. Pepper are one and the same. So if you didn't know that today, now you know. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to split this one up. So this is going to be the end of lecture 1. We're going to actually then come back and take a look at sections 16.4, 16.5, and 16.6. So we will actually see you guys in the next video.